So how are you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing great. I don't have any complaints. You know, it's always busy in the library. There's always lots of different things going on. It's been a busy fall, and we're running down here into the holiday season. The city just we had the parade of lights not that long ago, and we had an open house here at the library, and we got a lot of people come through. I mean, the holidays are always fun. It's interesting to see all the kids excited and getting ready for the holidays and people making plans. So I don't have any complaints.
Are you guys always busy during the holidays?
You know, I think really it varies a lot, time of day of the week. Like, you know, we do after school programming during the school semester. So like, you know, I tend to find at the library like 3:45 to, like 6 o'clock can be peak time when a lot of people are running in and out, like after school's out and when they just get off of work. But like, you know, during the regular school semesters as well, like we work with some groups like Ollie, the OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute guys have some classes here, and there are a lot of groups and organizations that use a meeting room. So like mid-morning, a lot of those groups can come in and out. And then, you know, evenings, there's groups coming in and out using the meeting room, people hanging out at the study tables. You know, I would say like, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are probably like the busier days. I feel like people like to, you know, get things done at the start of the week, at least when they've got like specific things to work on. And then like, you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes we see more people kind of like coming in, hanging out, sitting at the study tables, reading the newspapers, hanging out in the kids area, using the toys and puzzles. But I mean, it fluctuates all the time.
I want to also thank y'all so much because I get to use this room whenever it's available. Yeah. Because before I would switch locations. Sometimes I go to people. It depends where, and I like that. But sometimes like the one I was using was like at a church, and I didn't want to keep bothering them because sometimes they're not open every day. Or sometimes I would go USD, but I'll have to do it after work, and sometimes they're full. And then I don't know how I found out. I think someone mentioned about the library, but I thought they were talking about USD library.
Oh, yeah.
But then I couldn't find it. And then I found that they had rooms here. I was like, I think I could use the room. So I started using that conference room. Mm-hmm. The only thing with the first few episodes of the window, the lighting messed or it makes the video grainy. And I was like, man, but there's no other room. And I saw this one because that one, it wasn't available. And I was like, hey, this looks nice because you guys got, you know, the books, and then I like the atmosphere. Yep. So I started booking more and more.
I mean, we're really fortunate. There's, you know, and if you're not a USD student or faculty member, there's not a whole lot of places, especially any other free ones for have meetings and groups and things. I mean, like, you know, there's the Armory and Pizza Ranch and the Dakota Center. They have some rooms and stuff. But, you know, for like community groups and organizations, especially some of those like nonprofit groups or like sporting groups, I don't know, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, things like that. A lot of them have had meetings here. I've seen the Sierra Club come in. Some of those like the Retired Teachers Organization, ESA, there's so many groups that, you know, our policy has always been like when we're not using our meeting rooms for programs and activities, we make them available to the community to reserve on a first come, first serve basis. And, you know, definitely like, you know, during the semester times, there's super busy. I mean, this October, November, our room reservation calendar was pretty full with reservations. And, you know, originally we've got that main big room, the Kozak room, the larger one that, you know, you can get kind of like up to about 100 people in there. And then the conference room were our main two. But we found so many people were looking to use our rooms. This room used to mainly be like a South Dakota collection, so like local state history collection. And there's still some of that in here, some of the, you know, more unique, rare stuff, things we want to keep an eye on, like yearbooks that aren't so easy to replace, and or people sometimes like try and cut pictures out of and things. But, you know, so we could double up and use this room as an extra meeting room. We moved a lot of the stuff, the history stuff, into just a general collection. So now we've got all three of these rooms, and yeah, it's always amazes me how much they get used. It's great, but you know, sometimes people are a little disappointed. They come in and they're, you know, amazed to find out. You know, we tell people we'll take room reservations up to like 3 months ahead of time. That way we can make sure we get our library programs on there, and that, no one like group or organization is like monopolizing using all the rooms. So like all the community gets a chance if they need them. But other than that, first come, first serve, and people do take use of them, whether it's just like studying, meetings, interviews, right up to like educational programs, social gatherings. I mean, sometimes on the weekends, on the Saturday, we've had some people do like a baby shower or birthday party in the meeting room. So,
oh snap! Really?
Yeah.
Oh no, you're right. They did. Last year, a friend of my daughter, they had a little birthday party over there at the Kozak room,
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, at the library. Well, because they said the room, but I didn't know what it was, and they said, yeah, it's at the library. I was like, but you can't have a party at the library.
Yeah.
And yeah, when we went, and it was like, oh, they rented the room, and yeah, they had a fun time. I think for like 2 hours. Oh, that's kind of cool. You guys get to do like a lot of, or people get to do a lot of cool stuff. I really like that during that parade of lights, that everyone comes to the library. You got your Santa Claus, you got the choir. You guys do a lot of cool stuff here.
Yeah, that was something we started. We've done that since before I was here, except like those like pandemic year or two where things looked a little different. But we've done the open house, but we've long done that. Like we have a kids craft and done hot chocolate and cookies, and then it always amazes me. There's only a handful of places, in Vermillion where families can come and kind of bring their kids to talk to Santa. They'll stop over. We got that nice spot right by the fireplace. We put the tree up, turn the chair around, and it's such a nice setup. Santa, this year, the last couple of years, Santa will hop on the fire truck and ride it down to the tree, light the tree, turn it on, and then ride back down here and kind of meet with families. And yeah, it's a great atmosphere. The children's choir, I think they've been coming now 3 or 4 years, and it's great to see like, their families and friends come down to see their kids sing. I know Gretchen Burback, the choir director, I think, she'd mentioned how this was kind of like one of their first main events of the season, so their kids could kind of get a feel before they have some things practice, before they have some things other places. And, we love having them here. They get to kind of show off what they do to the community, and, we get to pull in some people. And the open house for us, I kind of think, is a really nice opportunity. We've got a lot of community members that come in all the time, whether it's like, there's some people who come in 2 or 3 times a day, and others who come in, once or twice a week. Sometimes it's once a month, and others we only see them, once a year, or, depending on what they're looking for or doing. But, that open house in my mind, is a really nice opportunity. We get people in here who are new to the community. They've never been in before. They hear about the Parade of Lights. They stop down here afterwards. I see people like grabbing flyers in a newsletter, like, oh, I didn't know the library had all these or offered these programs. And, people who haven't been in the library for a while, I tend to find people go through like phases of life, like when they've got young kids, they really get a lot of use out of us with, story time activities and all the children's books we have. And they're looking for things to do with their kids. And then there's that group like seniors, when they've got more time on their hand and they want to come to classes and activities. Like there's a group on Wednesday afternoon who meets. It's more like a mixed like social recreational group, knitting group. They do knitting, crochet, sewing, but they let anyone come in if someone wants to learn how to do it, talk about getting new ideas. They meet here for a couple of hours on Wednesday afternoons. So, people can, there's just so many different things going on.
So I'm so curious, how did you like land here? Because tell me, correct me if I'm wrong. Someone told me that you're from the UK. Mm-hmm. Now, you gotta tell me about that. Like, what part?
So I grew up in Brighton. Well, I grew up in a town called Hove, Hove. Mm-hmm. It's right on the south coast, and it's one of those scenarios where the place a lot more people have heard of is Brighton, like Brighton Beach. It's like an hour south of London, right on the English Channel. And it's one of those scenarios where they grew so big, they just kind of merged together. Like after I left, they renamed it the city of Brighton and Hove. So now it's just one big city. But I grew up there. I lived in the UK till I was about 24. I went to high school over there. And then when I graduated, or they don't call it high school over there, but the equivalent secondary school. Mm-hmm. I went to the University of Sussex, which is right there on the near Brighton. It's in Falmer, like on on the chalk cliffs there, and the downs is like a national kind of park area there. And I did an undergraduate in history, which I really enjoyed. That was something I was real interested in. It was kind of fun. I did like an undergraduate like dissertation research project, and at the University of Sussex there in their library, they have this like archival floor or section, like the Mass Observation Archive, and it's kind of like a public history section where over the years. And I did a paper about like the build up to World War II and appeasement and Chamberlain and people's feelings about that. But they would have people keep like journals or diaries about how they were feeling, things that they were concerned about, things that were worrying them, and just kind of like journal. And they would also send out like questionnaires on hot topics of the time. And it was interesting to kind of read like people's feelings in that like interwar period. Like, so many people had just got over the World War One and lost family members and still had, were terrified of another world war coming. And there was another group of people who were super like worried about, the growth of the Nazi Germany and how to respond to that. And it was just a real interesting research project kind of reading into that. So that's where I did my undergraduate degree, and I graduated, and I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go with my history degree. And, having done so much research in the library and the archive there, excuse me, I was thinking and trying to figure out, and I always enjoyed kind of, trying to find that information, digging out those unique books, finding information, looking through the archive records. I came over here and I enrolled in it's Library and Information Science, the master's program, which is kind of the main librarian degree, but also they have some tracks. And at the time, I specialized in archives, record management, and preservation because I was more focused or interested in doing something like an archive or a museum. And things just kind of led in another direction. I think one of the challenges I found with, archives is, on one hand, a lot of the people who work at archives and museums have worked there an awful long time, and they have a limited number of opportunities and a limited number of funds. And a lot of the starting positions you tend to find in archives and places like that are often like short-term, temporary, like grant-funded positions where you work there for like 6 months or a year doing like a digitization project, or, working through a donation of records from a certain particular person. And, at the time I was just looking for something more steady and ongoing. I had me and a young family and my wife, and kind of wanted a more steady income, and didn't want to be dragging them all over the country and moving around, changing my kids from schools to school when they were super young. So after I graduated, there was this real small community library in Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania there. I started volunteering, and another one near there had a job opportunity come up. So I started doing that part-time, and I was working there. And interestingly enough, the library director, who was husband was a preacher, got an offer to move to a church in New England, turned in their notice and said, our family's moving to New England. And they're like, they posted the library director position, and were like, well, you just graduated. It was a tiny library. They didn't have a lot of money. Like, you should apply. So I applied for the director's position, interviewed. I was like the only full-time staff member, and there were a couple of part-time staff members, and I worked there for about a year, and it was awesome. It was interesting. Got to learn a lot about public libraries, but at the time, that tiny little library, I think I was making like $10-12 an hour as the library director.
Really?
Yeah, that was they had a tiny little budget, and not a lot of money, and there were a lot of questions about where their money came from, and they had an unusual setup where like in South Dakota, generally public libraries are funded by either your city or county government. A lot of the ones in Pennsylvania run as like an independent, like nonprofit organization or something like that. And so they get some state aid from some federal grants and programs, and then money donated to them from various communities. But this library I was at got most of their money. It was about $50,000 at the time from the school district, which was a very strange setup. That's just the way it had been set up at the time. And they'd been kind of really struggling. They had a wonderful library director who I never had the chance to meet, but I heard a lot about, who was, I think there for 25, 30 years. And she was one of those people, I think, who enjoyed it and was very financially stable. And they said, like, she often didn't even like cash her paycheck. She basically worked there for free, which was, I think, how for so many years the library was able to do so much, right? Which kind of made them struggle as they went down the line trying to find, someone else. They had 2 or 3 library directors before me. But it was a great experience. But I was kind of looking for something with, some benefits and work at a larger library. And I'd been applying and looking around. And originally I worked up at the University of South Dakota libraries here on campus. So I moved here from Pennsylvania in, it was actually December 2012. Because I remember we packed up like the day after Christmas. There was me and my wife, my 3 kids. Our youngest was like 6 months old at the time, so not very old at all. We had 2 dogs and 2 cats, and we loaded everything we could fit into our SUV and drove down here. It was like from Pennsylvania to here, like it's a 16 to 18 hour drive. But of course, we had to keep stopping to let the dogs out, the cats out. It was cold. It was snowing. We got here. When we first moved here, we were living in a house we were renting because we had to find something kind of quick that we could move into on National Street, the one just up from Main Street there, like behind near where UCC Church is and south of where the med school is. We lived there for several years when we first moved here. And we moved down here, unloaded, and then half our furniture never showed up. They didn't unload it all and headed off to their next stop in Oregon, and then came back 2 weeks later and dropped some more off, and half of it was still missing. And in the midst of this, that right at the end of the year, I started at USD. So from like 2013, I think it was for about a year and a half, I worked at the USD library. I did like the interlibrary loan and course reserves up there on the second floor of the USD library, which was great. It was nice to get some experience in an academic library. And then when the archivist left, I kind of helped out in the USD archives for a while, which was a great opportunity, and getting to work with those guys and the projects they were doing. And then in the midst of all that, I took an opportunity to go work over at the USD Law School Library over in the law school building. So I did that for a year. And that was interesting, another different side of librarianship that a lot of people don't get to experience. You kind of, those special libraries that are more dedicated, like medicine and law and those types of things. And while I was there, the job opportunity came up down here at the public library. So I applied for that, and the rest is history. I've been in libraries now for about 12 years, but I've been here at the Vermillion Public Library since 2016. So about 8 years now.
Whoa. And do you like it?
Oh, yeah. I've always loved libraries and what they offer to the community. Especially there's something unique about public libraries. We just serve so many different people. I kind of say like there's few organizations in our communities, especially these days, that offer so many different things to so many people. Like, a lot of people still think about libraries as buildings full of dusty old books sometimes. And I just have to tell them, like, that they're more like a community center these days. I still find people who even now, like we've been checking out before VHSs, not anymore, but DVDs now for years. And I still run into people from time to time who don't even realize, we have movies, we have audio books, we check out puzzles, we have hotspots, games, activities, we have the computers people can use for printing, copying, scanning, faxing. We have programs for all ages. There's just so many different things we do. And it's kind of like the biggest kind of blessing and struggle, if anything, that that we're balancing so many different things. And, some people come into the library with that more traditional, they're looking for a quiet place to study or read or do some research. And then there's other people who want to come in, they want to use the meeting rooms, they want to do activities, community groups want to get together, organizational meetings, they want to talk about important community issues. We've got parents who want to bring their kids in and hang out in the kids area and let the kids play around and learn and explore and pick out books. We've got seniors who want to kind of meet and do activities like the knitting group or like the Ollie classes and kind of learn new things, whether it's, local history, politics, crafts. We also have an adult craft group we hold here once a month. There's just so many different things going on, and people have so many different expectations of what a library is and what it offers. It's a balancing act.
So what are those? I guess those are part of those misconceptions. Like people would think, oh, just a library, just books. But you guys, like Harry's saying, you guys got you could check out other stuff, community stuff. You guys got everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, this last year, we worked with Megan Jarchow, the chair of the USD Sustainability Program and Greening Vermillion. Her capstone class, and I think it was one of our other faculty members who kind of made the suggestion from, I think, something he'd seen at another library. They did a capstone research project for their students on the sustainability and the circular economy. So rather than the disposable economy where we use things and throw them away, what can we share and reuse and repair? And they did this research project and a paper on it. And as part of that, they kind of did an investigation into this library of things concept that's come up in various places around the country, sometimes in libraries and sometimes with other organizations where, we're checking out more what I'd call non-traditional things. So we have a little shelf over here by the restrooms, and it's got board games, it's got puzzles for all ages, but it's also got some equipment. We've got a soil pH tester, an electricity meter, a tape measure, a toolkit, all sorts of these other things that, sometimes people either don't have at home, or they may not be able to afford it, or a lot of the times, people buy these things, they'll do them once. They'll do a puzzle and throw it in a shelf or in a closet and forget about it until they're cleaning out that closet, or they'll play a game a few times with their kids when they're younger, and then they'll just end up buried away in storage or in their basement. They're those type of things where people use them for a short period, like tools. You only use them every so often, especially if you're not a handy person. You fix something and then you throw them in your basement or toolkit or garage and don't touch them again. That idea there, we kind of have them here. They're readily accessible and you can just borrow them from us and bring them back. So there's a whole variety of things.
Can anyone donate whatever item, or is there kind of a...
I mean, we've definitely taken some donations. Some of the board games we've got, the puzzles were mostly donated. The original batch of materials, the USD project got a $500, I think it was, grant, and they purchased the initial batch. We're kind of run up against one. We've only got so much space. We've had some suggestions of things like snow shovels, which is an interesting one, but they only get used part of the year.
Oh, that's true.
And, having the space to store these things, it's not something that we can stack easily or lay on a shelf and without taking up a lot of room. So we've been a little bit cautious and selective. We've tried to keep it to things that, reusable and something that can easily fit in a tub or a box, so it's easy for people to check out and bring back without losing all the pieces. But we've been kind of toying around with that. But I mean, for a long time, we've had audio books, we've had some kids activity books. We've done large print books for community members, with a visual disability or whose eyesight just isn't as good as they used to be. One thing I think people don't realize we have what we call outreach program. We have a staff member who a big part of their job is making deliveries to homebound patrons or patrons living. They'll stop and make deliveries to the assisted living facility and the care center over at Stanford. They'll stop over at the Town Square apartments, and they'll deliver materials for people who either don't have the transport or a disability that means they can't easily get to the library. We've had anywhere from 15 to 30 people there. We've been delivering materials materials to. We'll pick stuff out, drop it off. They'll have it for 2 weeks, and then we'll pick it up and trade it out and give them a new batch. So.
Oh, snap. Okay, I didn't know that. That's kind of cool.
Yep.
Now, I want to go a little more in the beginning. Like, is this what you always wanted to do since you were a kid? Like, I want to, work with in a library setting, books, or how was that when you were younger?
I think so. Even if I didn't, realize it, like, history was always one of my interests. I also remember the town I grew up in Hove. I would always walk to school. We didn't have like a school bus, and my parents never dropped me off. They were always busy working. And every day I'd walk past the public library on the way to school and home. It was right there. I could run in and check stuff out. I got started on the public library when I was younger. It's, easy to run in there and pick something out, bring it home, read it, and just, access to such a variety of things. And, the nice thing about the library is it doesn't really matter, how financially well off you are or aren't, or how big your house is. I mean, either way, you've only got so much space in your house and so much money. You can only buy so many books for yourself. And, the nice thing about the public library is you can come in here and, find so many different things on so many different topics. And if you don't like it, just put it back and pick something else up. You don't have to agree with it. Maybe you're just curious of getting a different perspective on something. And, as a public library, I think, although we have a very big, biographies and nonfiction collection, a large amount of what we check out is generally, popular fiction and authors, Nora Roberts, James Patterson, Clive Cussler, things like that. And, when you kind of see people talking the benefits of reading, are just so many different things people don't even realize. For, kids who go into school who already have some good literacy skills and a basic understanding of numbers, letters, and words get off to a great start, much better than those kids who don't have that opportunity. Kids who have access to these books and could read them and check them out. Generally, if you don't have those foundational literacy skills in reading and writing, it's kind of hard to even get into some of the other topics, math, science, geography, because you need those skills to build upon in the first place, because all those other resources and information you're getting, you need to be able to do them at a certain level to get started. Seniors that you kind of mentioned, like, the benefits of, things like everything from like dementia and Alzheimer's and things like those, community members who are actively, engaged in reading and informed and trying new things and learning new things. It can often help, prevent some of those things or the onset of those things. And just in general, like a place where people can stay informed because, even if it's fiction, generally authors write these materials with an idea or a story in mind. And generally a lot of those stories, even if they're, science fiction and things like that, are based on a particular issue, idea, thought process. And, it just opens people's minds to different perspectives, different ideas. You don't have to agree with them all. But, gives humans and community members an opportunity to get a better understanding of each other, why people think the way they do, act the way they do. There's just so many different possibilities out there, and it's hard for us to all understand them all, especially these days, us as human beings, I think we're often so busy, right? Doing so many different things, consumed in our own lives, almost operating in our own little bubble, a particular career, a particular job, the things our kids are doing. And we don't always have a lot of time to explore some of those things, and we kind of stay in our own comfort zone. The library is an easy way to kind of expand out and look at some other things. There's just, I guess, an endless amount of possibilities. And, that always interested me. I could pick up a book on history and read something factual, whether it was, and when I was, in school, I was real interested in that whole like World War I, World War II era and generation, the rise of, Russia. And it was just a real interested period of history, something my grandparents lived through and would kind of talk about. But then, also just getting into the reading. There was an author, I remember when I was younger, Famous Five, Enid Blyton. I really liked reading those books. It was fun. It was engaging. They got out there and solved crimes and mysteries and did interesting things in interesting ways. So, I think after I graduated with my history degree and I was trying to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, I was like, libraries make a lot of sense.
Speaking of that, do you like watching movies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, is there any like movies that were translated from books or adapted from books that you like? And then are there some that you hate?
I mean, in general, I tend to say and I think this is a fairly common thing. I always recommend people, if they can, to read the book before they watch the movie. I mean, if you do it the other way around, once you've watched the movie, you've kind of got these predefined ideas of what the person looks like and who they are and how they act. And, sometimes the movie isn't the same as the book, but I mean, some of the more recent ones I like the Harry Potter movie adaptations. They were great fun. There was one I was kind of disappointed in. I remember reading a while back. There was that Aragon series by Christopher Fellini, and
I know that one.
They made the movie. They made a movie of the first book, and they kind of changed the ending, and a lot of people got mad about it. And they never made any more of the movies. And that one I was kind of disappointed in. But I mean, this year alone, we partnered with the movie theater here in town. I know you had spoken to Shannon on one of your previous things. So friends of the library group who runs a bookstore downstairs, which is another topic we could talk about if we have time. But they sponsored us doing the Sunday or Saturday movie showing of people to go to the movie. And then we did a book discussion afterwards. And this year there was that It Ends With Us movie, the Colleen Hoover book that got turned into a movie. And then there was another interesting one. The book was that Ministry of Ungentlemanly Conduct.
Which one was that one?
It was kind of like a movie about World War II and the SAS, and had Superman gentleman in it, Henry
Cavill?
Yeah.
He was in there?
Yeah, he was in there. And the guy from that Reacher TV series. And it was real good. And so we had the opportunity where we had the books available for checkout here. We had about 10 of them we purchased. And then we scheduled to do the movie showing. And after the movie, for anyone who wanted to stick around afterwards, we did a book discussion in the gallery on the side.
Oh, that was really cool.
But the friends of the library kind of covered the cost for us of buying the books and the movie ticket. So it was a lot of fun.
See, so I need to stop doing it. I watched the movie first. And then when I tried reading the book, I'm like, this is not how it happened. And it happened with the Harry Potter. I remember I was in elementary school when the first Harry Potter movies came out, and I loved them. And then I tried reading the books, and I was like, man, this is, I mean, I think there was more extra details.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't know, this doesn't seem right. But no, now, yeah, it's because there's so much you could cover in in a 2 or 3 hour movie. Yeah. But the books, there's so much detail.
Yeah, I think you always tend to find there's a whole lot more in the book than they can ever cram into a movie. I mean, even some of those more epic ones. I mean, one of my favorite movies now that I think about it has been those the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, and they were great movies, those Peter Jackson ones. But I mean, you look at the Lord of the Rings book as a series. I mean, it's huge. And then the Hobbit as well, and all the other different lore and background and other books he's written. I think there's always so much more to explore in the book, and it gets into a lot more detail about the past and the history and the interactions with the characters. And don't get me wrong, I love the movies too. There's nothing wrong with them, but me personally, that's my suggestion approach. I'd always rather read the book first before I watch the movie.
There was in elementary school, so I remember we always read a book and then they watched the movie.
Yeah.
And one of the first ones I think was the movie Holes, or the book Holes, and then the movie. And then the other one was the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yep.
I remember I don't know if I have a bad imagination, but I remember reading the book and it was fine. And then we watched the movie and I was so blown by it. I was like, whoa, is this what happened? But then also there was another, so it was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And then the movie, or the book Prince Caspian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. they made the movie also, but I didn't like the movie. And then also, I think they made another one. It was the something Voyager.
Yeah, Voyager, the Dawn Treader.
Yeah, but then the movie wasn't that. I didn't like it, but the books and the lore is just, I don't know what, either they directed it really wrong, but the books had like a bunch of lore.
Well, and not a lot of people realize, sometimes they just like turn that first book into a movie. Like you say, kind of like that whole Chronicles of Narnia series. There's quite a few books in that series.
Yeah.
And I remember, because there's also that prequel, The Magician's Nephew, that takes place before it as well.
Yeah, they're out of order.
Yeah. And I remember when I was growing up, I think it was the BBC in the UK did a really good like TV series version of the Chronicles of Narnia. And I can't remember what order I did that in. But I definitely like watched some of that and then finished off the rest of the books. And that was awesome. And I know they did the movies here, but I think they only maybe did movies for the first like 2 or 3 books. And
yeah, there was 3. That first movie was really good. The first one was really good. The second one was kind of iffy. That third one, I don't like it.
I mean, and, it's hard to please everyone, right? You can never make everyone happy. Sometimes I think these directors try to change the story a little so it's not exactly the same as books, and other directors try to stay faithful to the book. So you never kind of know. I mean, unless you go back to the book itself or you've read it, sometimes you never really get the full experience,
Now with books, is there like do you also read comic books or any like manga?
It's not something I've ever gotten into so much. But I mean, there are plenty of people who have. In fact, we have in a library here in both the kids area and the adult area, we would call them like graphic novels.
Yes.
So like, the comic books tend to be more like the disposable, thin, like paperback ones, and they're just not that durable. And some of them, are just bound together sets, so they're all together. But, the graphic novels is another popular and increasingly popular in recent years series. And in fact, some of those things that were originally books have had like graphic novel adaptations and things like that. Because I also find like, especially with some of those struggling readers or people who feel like they can't have a hard time getting into reading or don't read as much, and especially some of those like younger elementary kids who are kind of intimidated or getting some extra reading assistance, like those graphic novels are much more approachable. They've got a lot of fun artwork and you can see the pictures and the speech bubbles, and oftentimes they can get into them first before they can get into some of the other things, and it's a nice way to kind of break into that balance or bridging between like the the book and the movie, because there's everything from like the Pokemon graphic novels, the Marvel like the superhero graphic novels. There's some of those super popular like kids series like Dogman and Captain Underpants and the Dork Diaries that have a lot more images and artwork and pictures in that kind of make it a little more entertaining.
Oh, one series that my daughter's now she's really into is The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Man, she loves that, and I never read the books first. I saw the movie. Saw the live action, and then I was like, oh, they made books out of these. And the same thing, Victoria, my daughter, she saw the movie first, and no, either she saw it or she read the first one, but after she saw it, she was like, oh, there's more books. And now I think she's read every single one. She won't listen to this one, but we bought her it just came out, I think, this month or last month, so we got her as a Christmas present. Because she was like, oh, I want that book. And then also they made a TV series, and that one is more faithful with the art direction. So, books, movies, series, they could all like, collab. You're not like against like, oh no, you only have to read the book, the movies, the video games, the music, all that. You're not against that.
DVDs are still one of the biggest circulating areas of the library. I mean, they are in and out all the time. I sometimes, we keep an eye on those types of things. Like, for a long time, we have books on CDs. People would often, when they're driving to work or from work or traveling, they'd put a CD in their car and listen to stories while they're driving, pass the time, especially for long car rides or if they have long commutes to work. But, these last 5 years or so, CDs are kind of losing out to streaming. You know, when you buy a new car now, most of the time they don't come with a CD player. You have to either ask or get it specially installed. It's just basically like a radio with like Bluetooth, so you can hook it up to your phone.
Yep.
You buy a computer. Most of the time now they don't come with the disk drives anymore. So they've been fizzling out. So they've kind of been slowly declining, although we've still got some faithful users who listen to them all the time. We offer some electronic resources here at the library. You know, one thing people were kind of saying for the longest time that like ebooks are going to finish libraries. They're not going to be around anymore. Or why would anyone want a library when they can have ebooks? But, you know, ebooks is one of the things we check out. And, it's all personal preference. We've got some patrons who only use a like Libby app to check out ebooks and download audiobooks. We've got patrons who only use our print books. And now more than ever, we've got people who do a little bit of both. Like, and I get it. Like if I'm at home on the weekends or the evenings sitting, it's nice to sit with a drink and a book in your hand and have the physical item in your hand. But, you know, if I'm on my lunch break, if I've got the Libby app, I could just pull it right up and read for half an hour and it's right there on my phone. If I'm traveling, I don't have to carry 4 books around with me in my luggage. I've got it on my device. You know, there's options for both. But, you know, streaming is one of those challenges I find. For a while there, it was mainly like Netflix and Amazon Prime. And then all of a sudden it just blew up into this market where there's like Disney Plus and HBO and there's all these dozens of different subscriptions. And, you know, most of us can't afford or don't want to subscribe to 15 different streaming services all the time. And sometimes it's just more convenient to come in and check out the DVDs. Because, I mean, that's the other trend I've noticed with more than ever now with, television and movies is I feel like when I was a kid, you know, the TV and cable's kind of died off now, I think, to an extent was, you know, series with the occasional movie. But now, you know, so many things are more getting turned into TV series, right? You know, we've just got such a big section of things that were movies originally or things that were books get turned into, you know, an 8-10 part series or end up having, you know, 10 seasons or whatnot. There's just way more seasons. And, you know, part of me says, well, it's just a way to make more money because they drag these things out longer and you have to pay for more and get them. But, you know, in other ways, you know, it's nice because when they split it up more, you know, like we talked about, you can only fit so much in a 2-hour movie. When you turn it into a series, you can explore a lot more of these stories and books and literature. And you've got a lot more opportunity to focus in on certain areas and bring in characters that get left out of the movies because there's not enough time to get them in and things like that.
One thing that caught me and my wife's interest, and it's when we watched it and now we want to read the books, but she's more into it. The show Game of Thrones. So same thing. I didn't know it was a book series first, and apparently it's not finished. I don't think it's finished yet.
I started it. Those are some pretty chunky books as well. It's a big investment of time, and it's on one downside of being the librarian here, you know, in general is you see so much great stuff coming in. I kind of quit adding stuff to my wish list of things to read because it just got so long. There's so many different things I'd like to have time to get to. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those ones where George R.R. Martin had the books came out first. It got turned into the series, but then the series got ahead of the book. So I think that last, was it like season or 2?
Yeah,
there's no book for it. It hasn't been written yet, and I think he was kind of like a consultant on some of the production for the series and whatnot. But I know, you know, when you read, and again, it's hard to keep everyone happy, but I know there's some people who weren't really happy or convinced with how that last season ended.
I wasn't. Yeah, I've heard, because I didn't watch Game of Thrones. We never watched it when it came out. We just finished it actually this year because we just, you know, for some reason, my wife was like, hey, let's watch Game of Thrones. I'm like, okay, let's watch it. And it was so interesting. Like the whole season or every season until like that last season. Because I've heard about people complaining, but I was like, oh, it's probably just people complaining. And yeah, that last season I hated it. Now I understood why. But now we gotta read the books to see what's going on. But a cool thing about the author. So do you play video games?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. You know the game Elden Ring?
I've not played it, but I know what it is. I have always been a huge video game fan, especially kind of like fits in with my library theme, like the RPG fantasy style games. So,
what's your favorite one, or what do you like playing?
I mean, when I was a teenager, this is years ago, it's barely around anymore. I used to like playing some of those like MMO RPGs, like EverQuest and things like that. I toyed around with a bit, but never really got into like World of Warcraft and things like that. But there's like those, which also have a set of books that go with them, like the Forgotten Realms, things like Baldur's Gate and things like that are RPG games, and Icewind Dale. But I've done a little bit of everything over the years. And I think it's just another version of storytelling in a way. I really enjoy video games.
See, I love video games. Like, ever since I was a kid, that's my main thing, video games. I love it. But also, like, nowadays, I feel like, especially with the stories, they get so good, especially like, for example, you know the video game God of War?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there's the God of War ones, and then the new one. It's not a remake, but they made it, and then God of War Ragnarok came out. But like the story is just it's so good. Or if I play, for example, it could be the game The Last of Us or Uncharted, or you know what I really enjoy? The Pokemon games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I get so invested in it, like the competitive side, like, because there's people, if they understand it, there's breeding in it, IV training. There's like, I watch those competitive, like they have the Pokemon World Championships. I watch that, or if it's like Super Smash Brothers. Okay. Or even like Fortnite or this and that. So
video games is an interesting one, because I often find it much more. It works both ways, right? Because when you look at some of those, like another really popular one in recent years has been the Witcher series.
Yeah.
That was a video game, but it was based on, which I don't think a lot of people realized, a book series by a Polish author, which we have, but then it also got turned into a TV series.
Yeah.
And, then there's others, like Halo was another super popular one, but, that then got turned into some books and graphic novel, follow-ups there, and then things like like Star Wars was a movie originally, but then there's a lot of books and different directions and different characters, and then it ended up like the Lego Star Wars, and so it just branched off in so many different directions. So a lot of these things are interconnected. But video games is a really interesting one. I've seen it both go both ways. Sometimes the video game comes first, and then it just branches out into a whole book series, and other times you didn't even realize the video game you were playing was based on a book by someone.
Yeah. Have you seen the Witcher series?
I have not watched the recent ones. I watched the original, like the first Henry Cavill season.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you hear like why he left, or I don't know if they fired him, but did you hear why?
I mean, the one thing I heard was he felt they weren't being true to the original book.
Exactly. That's what blows my mind, because first of all, I thought he was a great Superman. I think it was just like the writing. I thought he was great. And then The Witcher. So I played the video game first, and then I heard about the books, and then I heard about the show. And I'm a fan of Henry Cavill, especially because he plays video games. He likes PC gaming. Yep. And I heard, if I heard it on an interview or something, that for some audition, he was like super late to that audition. He almost missed it. I think because he wasn't playing World of Warcraft. He was playing something.
I think it's by the same, like the Blizzard, I think. Warhammer.
Yeah, there you go.
He's a huge. I mean, that's not something I've played a whole lot of, but I've heard it. But yeah, from what I gather, he's a huge Warhammer video gaming fan.
What about? Have you played is it called the Diablo series?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you recommend? I never got into any of those PC MMO games. Mm-hmm. I had a friend of mine from when I worked at Best Buy. He said, because I think a lot of my coworkers, they started playing World of Warcraft, and he was into it a while back. Then he stopped. I said, "Hey, should I, or what? What should I want to get into it. What should I do?" And he told me don't play it at all, because he said it's so addicting. It like ruined his life, something like that.
I mean, I do. I remember I played the first one, Diablo 1, when it came out, and that it wasn't, from my recollection, it was just like a single player game. It wasn't even online, because it was before, there was a whole lot of online gaming, and it was a whole lot of fun exploring dungeons and collecting equipment and whatnot. And then I think when Diablo 2 came out, I have this recollection because at the time I was still on dial-up internet, and I remember that scenario of like my parents getting mad at me, like, I want to use the phone, get off the phone line. And so, that was kind of fun, and you could hop in games, but it was such a production connecting to the internet and getting in those games and getting disconnected. But that was a lot of fun. But I kind of, me personally, and I know like that Diablo 4 is out now, and I toyed around with it, and there's an expansion. But I mean, I find the graphics are good and the interface, but I don't have as much fun with it. I played it for a bit and then kind of stopped. I feel like, I guess I don't know. Like I remember with Diablo 1 or 2, you felt like you could do a lot more exploring and roaming and wandering around. And with some of the more recent ones, it feels like you're kind of like put on this predefined track or path and you just follow it through till its end.
Okay. Have you ever played any of the Final Fantasy games?
Not all of them, but yeah, I've played a few of them, yep.
I haven't played one before. And one that it just got announced. It's the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is a remake of Final Fantasy VII. I think it's the second part. Now it's released. Now they're releasing it on PC. And I was wondering, I was like, should I play that one or should I play the original or the other ones like Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3, the ones that were like on the Super Nintendo?
Yeah.
So I need to figure that stuff out.
I mean, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was always more of a PC fan. I've played a little bit on like a Nintendo, various consoles in the past, and the PlayStation, a little bit of Xbox, but I've always been more of a PC person. And from my impression is a lot of the early like Final Fantasy games were more like console-based games.
Yeah.
And I forget, there was definitely in the middle there, like I forget if it was like 6, 7, or 8. I played a couple of them and they were a lot of fun. Some of them are more animated and some of them are more like realistic.
Yeah.
I did toy around. They did that like Final Fantasy Online for a bit, but I never really got into it like their MMORPG version, which is still around. But those are another one that, they've got some great characters and great story to them. And the artwork and the cinematography has been awesome in some of those games. They're a lot of fun.
What, do you have a gaming PC currently right now? Mm-hmm. What's your specs?
Oh, it's getting a bit dated now, but
really?
Unfortunately now I had spent so much time adulting between the kids and being here, I don't have as much time. I several years ago, my old computer was getting a little wore out. I invested in one of those Alienware. I think that's by Dell, and it had decent RAM, a good graphics card, and like an i7 processor. But it's several years old now, and it runs everything, but like. It still has one of the old-fashioned hard drives instead of like the solid-state drives. You see, like that's one thing I've noticed on the like specs for some of the newer games, like Diablo 4, where they recommend you have like the solid-state drive to just play it and things like that. So,
do you build PCs? Have you ever built one before, or was it a while back?
Yes and no. Before I moved over here, I had a computer that I kind of shopped around for the pieces and kind of started putting it together. But I was fortunate enough that my brother-in-law has a computer science background, and he was like, I ordered the pieces and had them sitting there, and he's like, "Oh, this is awesome," and he just like helped me put them together in no time. So, but yeah, I mean, I've changed out the RAM, replaced the graphics card, switched out the power unit when it burnt out. So yeah, I've done a bit of that. Not so much recently with some of the newer computers, like. But they're a lot more, plug and play and interchangeable than they've been. And I guess it gets tricky. I've not messed with the inside of a laptop before.
Yeah, the laptop, I don't know. But so right now I have a PC that I built. It's the second one, but same thing. It's kind of, compared to whatever it is currently now, it is dated. And I've been looking like recently, actually last week, looking up these, like a CPU and everything. And I was checking the prices. So it's a little more expensive, but I guess because during COVID, the stuff was insane. It was expensive. Yeah. But now it's just so cheap. Like I was looking up it's an AMD CPU on Newegg, and I think it was a Ryzen 750, something like that. And it was bundled up. It said like you get it for like, let's say $130. Mm-hmm. And then they were giving RAM free. And I was like, there's no way. This is probably a scam, but it's not. It's on Newegg. They were giving 32 gigabytes of RAM for free on that. I'm like, oh, snap.
Yeah, I've really found over the years it's gone in phases. You know, there was a time there when everyone said, oh, it's so much cheaper to just build your own PC. You can get exactly what you want and it will cost you, you know, hundreds of dollars less than buying one from the store. And then I think we went through a phase where I saw a lot of people saying, you know, by the time you brought all the pieces and put it together, it's cheaper and easier just to buy the pre-made ones. And I think over the years, it's just kind of fluctuated back and forth.
It is, because when I built mine, man, I built mine, I can think in 2017, the first one, $500. And it destroyed, back then, it destroyed the PS4, Xbox One. It was, and I would tell people, like, you could just build it because it's almost the same price. And then nowadays, like, if you want one that's better than the PS5 or the Xbox, what's it called, Series X, now it will cost you like, I'm going to say like $700, $800. Like, but I think it'd be the same thing. If you shop around, it will last you. I like the PC gaming a lot, but I also have the other consoles because I collect them too. So
I know sometimes I feel like I'm getting a little dated because it seems like a lot of the kids are more into like the Xboxes and the PlayStations and the Nintendos. But I've always been PC. I've been a faithful PC gamer, and I think I always will be. I use a controller, but I'm a much bigger fan of a mouse and keyboard. And
there you go, the PC master race. The one thing. So I need to start doing that because I grew up with consoles, so I'm used to the controller, and I've messed around with mouse and keyboard. I think I've played it with Battlefield 4. That one was amazing. And I played it with Star Wars Battlefront. But, well, there's a game that me, my wife, and my daughter play. It's Fortnite. For some reason, because I played it on console first, so I'm always used to it. And then I'm playing it. I'm like, man, dude, I need to start doing the mouse and keyboard. I've done it with other ones. I'm just so used to the controller on this game. And then I don't know. I just same thing. There's a building part. I don't know how to do that. I've seen it when I watch people. They're like, I'm like, there's no way I can't do that.
Fortnite's been huge. You know, I think there's also just certain games that seem to work better on one than the other. Like, you know, I remember like the Super Mario Brothers and like Mario Kart and things like that. So, like, they're just more fun on the console.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, other things like a lot of those like first-person shooter games. Personally, Call of Duty and Battlefield, I like playing them better on a PC.
Have you tackled any of the VR stuff?
Not so much. I know my oldest son keeps asking me for a VR headset. The friends of the library actually purchased us a couple of the Meta Quest 3 headsets. So we use them in the teen programming after school. We've got them here and some games on them so they can try them out. And we got them the newest ones earlier this summer, and they've in use all the time. I keep meaning to get in there and kind of toy around with them. We had one before that, one of the old ones, I forget what it was. It wasn't the oldest one, but it was much more linked to your like Facebook account. And,
it was I think they were it was called just the Oculus until they rebranded
Oculus
it.
Go or something like that.
Oculus Go, the one that you didn't have to plug it into anything, right?
Yeah,
that was the first one.
And the state library here got some, I think, with some grant funds or something like that. And they circulated it around for a few years. And then I can't remember, they did some sort of drawing or enter for a chance to get it because they were giving it away. And we got one and used it with a few activities and team programs. But yeah, I mean, the VR seems like a whole lot of fun. It's not something I've got into, but also, you know, I've just kind of looked around at like the educational aspect of it. It does some really awesome things. You know, I've seen I was just talking to a vendor and it was way out of her price range. I think they were more targeted at schools and universities. They had some career programs where you could learn how to, do like mechanics or surgery and stuff.
Yeah,
and, if this is a career you'd be interested in, you could kind of mock surgery or be like a lineman and climb up and connect electrical wires and things like that. I saw some really fun ones where you could walk around and explore like the International Space Station like you were in it and things like that. I mean, it's got some great possibilities.
One thing I suggest for Halloween next year. So are you familiar with the game or with the series Resident Evil? Mm-hmm. So it's Resident Evil 7. Yeah, 6? No, 7. It's I remember when it came out, it's first person. Usually they're third person games, but they made it first person and it came out on a while back, and I had what do you call it, the PlayStation VR, and I played it, and I swear this is like one of the most scariest things I have ever had, because it's so you put the VR on,
yep,
everything's like it's like 3D, and then like it's on first person, and then what? I'm not spoiling anything, but this game, it's like you know the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that, because you gotta go save your girlfriend in this scary house in the woods with this crazy family, and they're chasing. It's the most scary. I swear, I cannot play it. I play like 10 minutes each time. It's one of the most scariest things. I don't know if it's because I could watch scary movies, I could read a scary book, and I could play a scary video game. But once you put that VR,
you're kind of immersed in it.
There you go. That's what it is. You're so immersed. It's so scary. Like there's videos. I think my wife has it. Like I'm screaming. But that's one thing that you guys ever do that, like a Halloween thing with the VR. It's immersed.
And that's an interesting point, though. I've seen a lot more of that. Like, I don't remember anywhere near as many like horror-based video games growing up. But Resident Evil was probably it was kind of a mix like sci-fi, fantasy, horror. But nowadays you look, there's just so many like horror-based games.
Yeah, there's Outlast. There's also even like some of the Silent Hill games from a while back. Mm-hmm. There's some scary. I don't know. There's some scary stuff, but. I need to end this because now we are over an hour.
Okay.
But before we leave, is there any last things or anything you want to mention? Where people can find the library online, but you guys got any events or anything you guys want to shout out?
I mean, we've always got stuff going on. I know that New Year's Eve, the 31st, we usually do, and we had to move it a little bit this year. We usually do a kids like holiday PJ party here at the library for like the elementary age kids. Usually it's on that Thursday before Christmas when the kids get off school, but they've got an interesting calendar this year. They finish on a Friday instead, so we moved it. But we'll have like a movie and pizza and a craft activity the kids can do. And then we're kind of in a break time here a little bit. We've still got some adult programming and a few pop-up things, but once we hit February, our regular after-school programming will pick up. And, most days of the week, we've got something going on after school. This semester, we had like Lego Club and STEM activities, and we have a tabletop RPG group that meets once a week after school. Youth services staff are just kind of like finalizing a spring schedule. So I'd say keep an eye out for that. A big thing every year is a summer reading program during June and July when the kids off school. We have a summer reading program you can register for. We have prizes for how many books or minutes you read. But then we also, like every Monday, we'll have a presenter or a performer of some sort here at the library in June and July. We'll have programs for all ages, different days of the week. And then usually at the end, I don't know if you've seen it before, we do that cardboard boat regatta down at the pool.
Yeah,
the kids can build their boats and then put them in the pool and race them. So that's always something big. So that is a whole lot of fun. I mean, on a little bit more of a gloomy note, and I'm not sure if I really want to dive down too much on this right now, but the big thing on my mind right now is we'd seen in the governor's budget proposal that just came out. I think there were a lot of things that people were frustrated in, but the one thing on my mind right now is that the proposal in there was to basically lay off half of the staff of the South Dakota State Library, cut over $1 million worth of funding for our South Dakota State Library, and reject or send back about $1.4 million of federal funding that we could use for things. And that funding right now, our state library uses, like they provide about 58 like electronic resources and databases like Ancestry and Heritage Quest for genealogy, World Book for the kids, research resources that get used in schools and universities. The state library provides resources to help libraries prepare for the summer reading program. They run the interlibrary loan service that lets us like exchange books with our libraries. I mean, we're only so big and have so much space. And a lot of the times, if we don't have something, we can borrow it from another library in the state. That's in question if we'll even be able to do that anymore. And we're just kind of getting into it. But I would really, if you haven't been in the library, come in and check out all the different things we do. But if you're a big fan of, libraries and education, resource sharing and information, I would encourage our community members to contact their legislators, especially their local District 17 legislators, and let them know that, libraries and educations and the community programs and engagements in libraries are important. And the South Dakota State Library is one of those entities that facilitates libraries across the state being able to do that.
All right, cool. I'll make awareness of that. Sweet. All right. Well, I think we should end it now, but I do want to thank you, Dan, so much.
Yeah, thank you. This has been great.